Um, so till now we touched upon data factory. In data factory, we learned what is copy data activity, what is lookup activity, how to create a full load pipeline, how to do the monitoring of a particular activity, what is delete activity, what is execute pipeline activity, how many types of triggers are there. Then we made a Databricks space. Then we try to read and write the data to Databricks, right? We also learned the Git integration of Data Factory with Git, right? How to integrate all of that we have learned. Now, today we will learn about Synapse Analytics, Azure Synapse Analytics, and we will learn what you can do in Synapse Analytics and how it is similar to what we have till now learned in Data Factory in Databricks, right? How we can relate that we will learn now. So yes, so like anybody has doesn't have any doubt with respect to what we have covered, right? So please practice the delta load class because that is a very important class, because there is one more class which I want to take related to delta load. So that would be beneficial for you if you just cover the previous class, right? That would be very beneficial. So let's create a Synapse Analytics workspace. And once we create a Synapse Analytics workspace, we will try to understand different parts of it. Okay. So yeah, so in Synapse Analytics workspace, we have multiple parts. So let me try to explain that. In Synapse Analytics workspace, we have uh, in Synapse Analytics what you can do. First, we can make pipelines, which is similar to Azure Data Factory. Okay, we can run Spark jobs, which is similar to Azure Databricks. So Spark is open source, right? So Spark jobs you can run in your local computer. You can run in Azure Databricks. You can run in Synapse Analytics as well. Spark has a capability to run your jobs parallelly, which can be done at multiple interfaces offered by different Spark clusters, right? So in Synapse Analytics as well, you can run a Spark job. Also, you can integrate integrate existing data lake that you can do in Synapse Analytics. So whatever data lake you have, you can integrate with Synapse Analytics. Also, you can create SQL pool, which is like dedicated SQL pool or serverless SQL pool. So there are two SQL pool you can create. One is dedicated SQL pool, one is serverless SQL pool, right? So when we were working with Data Factory, we used to create a SQL pool separately, like a SQL pool for to run our SQL query. But in Synapse Analytics workspace, you can create the SQL pool in Synapse Analytics itself. You can create a dedicated SQL pool. You can also create a serverless SQL pool. Okay. All of this you can do in Synapse Analytics workspace, and also you can make reports. So Synapse is a one-stop solution for multiple things, right? So Synapse offers you a UI in which you can do multiple operations. So whatever we have learned till now, so suppose if I write copy data activity, or if I write activities in Data Factory, for example. Okay. So if I open this, then you will see pipeline and activity in data factory and Synapse Analytics, because whatever you do, whatever you can do in data factory, you can do in Synapse Analytics as well, right? So if you search copy data activity in data factory, so it will also show you copy data activity in data factory and Synapse Analytics workspace, right? So ideally, whatever you have learned in data factory can be done in Synapse Analytics as well. All the things, okay? So let's try to create a Synapse Analytics workspace, and then we will try to go through all of this one by one. How it is similar, we will try to relate, okay? Any
Abhishek,
confusion till here,
is
guys?
there any, I mean, advantage of using Synapses over the data factory or?
Yeah, I will. So the advantage is pretty simple. So now suppose if I search about difference between data factory and Synapse.
Abhishek, among data factory and Synapse, which one is more used in the industries?
Data factory.
Okay.
One second, I am finding article. Given by Microsoft itself. So in data factory, the advantage of Synapse Analytics were pretty simple. In Synapse Analytics, you can basically do everything at one place. But in data factory, you cannot like run a Spark job. So when I tell you to run a Spark job in data factory, you cannot do. You need a Databricks, right? But in Synapse Analytics, you can run a Spark job as well. That is a benefit, and also you can create a SQL pool in Synapse Analytics, which you cannot do in data factory. So it has multiple advantages. Also, in Data Factory, you can share your integration runtime that you cannot do in Synapse Analytics Workspace. That is not possible in Synapse Analytics Workspace. That you share your integration runtime. Why Data Factory is being used widely? Because it is an old tool. Synapse Analytics is a new tool compared to Data Factory, right? So it's basically Data Factory is widely accepted, and people generally go for Data Factory plus Databricks, because suppose you will opt for Synapse Analytics for Spark job, and then if you want to create a pipeline, then you go for Synapse Analytics workspace, right? But like Databricks also a mature tool when it comes to Spark processing. So we generally like prefer this. So we generally prefer Databricks plus Data Factory instead of Synapse Analytics totally. So I was searching data integration. Yeah, I am sending you guys the article. I'm not able to find that over here, but I'm sending you here, which you can check in the group. So integration runtime, shared integration runtime is possible in Data Factory, but not in Synapse Analytics. And in Data Factory, you have global parameter, which I will talk about in going forward. That is possible over there. Here, it's not possible. So you can see both those differences. Okay. Now let's create Synapse Analytics workspace. Now, as Databricks also need a managed resource group, the Synapse Analytics also need a managed resource group. So if you give a name here, managed resource group for Synapse, it will create by that name. If you don't give the name, it will create by default name, right? So I'm giving a name here. Now I can take the same storage account which I have. So suppose if you have, like, if you want to create a whole new storage account, that you can anyways do, but I have used the like already existing storage account which is there, and then I'm creating a new file system. So suppose this is a container, so here I'm creating a new container for Synapse. You can use a existing container as well if you want to, but here you can see all the container, right? So I'm making a Synapse container here and using that container itself. But if you want, you can create a new container, that is also possible. But you cannot integrate existing blob storage, that you cannot do. You need to use a storage account, like, which is data lake gen 2, then that only you can use. And as I told that basically you can create a SQL server here as well, right? Yeah, so here you can create a SQL server. So for that itself, we will mention a SQL ID and password. So I'm mentioning a SQL ID, which is clear. And everything is by default. I'm not changing anything. So when you create your SQL, just remember the password of the SQL because it will be used going forward. And this is a serverless pool. So like this serverless pool will come by default with Synapse Analytics. You cannot opt for it. You need to take it in anyways, right? So it's like you need to take it, right? It's not like you can opt for it. There is no choice of choosing it and not choosing it. You need to take it, which is a serverless SQL pool, which comes with the Synapse Analytics. Okay. So as there is a two pool, one is dedicated pool, one is serverless pool. So serverless pool comes by default with Synapse Analytics workspace. I will explain what is serverless pool and dedicated pool, but for now, we have created a SQL ID and password. We also seen that we have a serverless pool. We created a data lake, right? Now let's create a Synapse Analytics workspace.
In pricing point of view, is Synapse better, like when combining Databricks and Data Factory? You said.
Those sort of thing is like difficult to say because it comes with how much data you're processing, how you're processing. So there is no hard answer that yeah, Synapse is cheaper or Data Factory plus Data Bricks is cheaper. Yeah, so
Okay.
those sort of answers difficult to give. But like when it comes to maturity of overall tool, uh, Databricks is much of a mature tool. There are multiple options which is there in Databricks, which is not there in Synapse. So Synapse is still um, incorporating those things which is not present in Databricks. But Data Factory, beside the differences which I have shared in the chat, it's almost same. So people who want, suppose in your company, if you're not planning for any sort of Spark optimization or Spark processing, then you will go for Data Factory. And if you are looking for Spark processing, limited amount of Spark processing, then you will go for Synapse Analytics. But if you have totally a Spark processing, big data processing, and you will work too much on Spark processing, then you will opt for Databricks uh, in comparison with Synapse Analytics, because that is a much of a mature tool. And it's this things I'm telling you from my experience, but it is, you will not see it written somewhere that this is how we follow it, and it's a way of choice. And when it comes to pricing, yeah, so if I Synapse Analytics is cheaper, way cheaper than Data Factory plus Databricks, then nobody will opt for it, right? So it's just a way of preference and architecture decision basically. There is no hard
Okay.
answer, and yeah, for that, yes. But everything can be the, so we have a cost calculator in Synapse. Sorry, a general Azure cost calculator. Um, yeah, so it's, so you can search like Data Factory here. You can select it. You can select the region, then you can select what you're using, and then you can basically calculate the price. Similarly, for Synapse as well, you can um, go here, select Synapse, fill in all the details, and then you can calculate it, and then from here you can try to estimate it. But yeah, so here you need to fill up multiple things to estimate. That is also not so like user friendly. And then yeah, so I haven't done it so much, but sometimes just for a rough estimate I come here. But yeah, so it's like too much details, but you cannot estimate all the details. That is also a problem, right?
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so let's go to Synapse Analytic workspace. So I will go here, I will open Synapse Analytics. Yeah, this is a Synapse UI. Now, one by one, I will try to click. So yeah, so let's see one by one. So here, as I told, we can make pipeline in Synapse, right? So if you go over here, so here you can see what are the things we have learned in Data Factory. We have learned about link service. We have learned about integration runtime, right? So you can also see the link service of like yeah, so you can see the link service already created for SQL Server, and also link service for created for your data lake already, right? So those things you can see already here, right? If you want, you can create another link service. That's so suppose if you want to create a link service for data lake, you can still do it, right? Triggers we have seen. Okay, so and now if you want to create a pipeline, you can go here and then create a pipeline. So suppose I want to create a copy data pipeline, I can paste copy data activity, and I can select my source, which is like suppose data lake gen2 CSV file, link service is this, and then I can select my file input container, okay, folder department.csv, first row as a header, import schema as none. Okay, similarly I can go to sync, do all the things. So whatever you have done in data factory is possible here by following same method. Okay, so now you can say, Abhishek, here generally in data factory we have data set and data flow that you can see here, right? Where is that? So here if you go here you can see integration data set. So the data set which you create over here, like in for the pipeline, will come as an integration data set over here, which is not coming here, right? So just like UI difference is there, but you can see it here. Now if you want to design a data flow, so you can come here and then you can click here, and then you can click to data flow, and then you design a data flow here, right? So yeah, so you can come to develop, and then you can click here, and then you can click to data flow to design the data flow, and rest is same. So whatever you have done in data factory, you can ideally do it here directly. So in the interview, if somebody is asking you that do you know Synapse Analytics, your answer should be yes. You shouldn't say that I have worked in data factory. Your answer should be yes, because whatever you do in data factory is possible in Synapse itself, right? Yeah, so I suggest that whatever classes you are like practicing, you can directly practice here just for the comfort level. Okay, so this is about the making a pipeline, right? Now now like yeah, so as I have written that you can integrate existing data lake. What does it mean? So suppose if I go here, if I go linked, then if I open this, I am able to see my data lake here, right, directly. Okay, I can see my data lake here. It's not like it is inside the Synapse. It's not like that. Whatever existing data lake is there, we integrated in the Synapse. Okay, so it's not like it's a new service altogether. Whatever data lake is there, we integrated it. So if you delete it from there, you can see that reflection here. If you delete it from here, you can see that reflection over there. Okay, so it's like just a way that just a comfort that you don't need to go to a different UI just to see this data. You can directly access it from here. Now suppose if I open any data, right? So let's open any data. So if I open this, now if I click to the property, there are two paths. One is this and second is this. Okay. So this path will be used whenever you are running a SQL query. Whenever you are running a Spark query, you will need to use this. Okay. So suppose now I want to run a SQL query on top of it. Okay. So what I will do, I can select this, I can run SQL query on top of it. Okay. So now let's run the SQL query. Okay, so yeah, so here we need to pass one more parameter to not to consider first row as a header, but currently it's consider not considering first row as a header, right? So open row set or something we need to pass. We just like I can Google it and then tell you, but yeah, so here if you just pass open row set, then you can see this, right? So here we are running a SQL query on top of our data lake, right? So we have given this path and running a SQL query, but you can again question me that how we are able to run a SQL query if there is no SQL pool. Okay, so suppose if I go here, if I click here, there is a built-in SQL pool. Okay, so this is a built-in SQL pool, but it's no, it's a serverless SQL pool. Okay, it is a serverless pool. It is not a dedicated SQL pool. What does
Abhishek,
it
what
mean?
is secure pool?
Yeah, yeah. One
I
second,
mean,
one
there are
second.
lots of connections, or
Yeah.
what?
So this is like a serverless SQL pool. What does it mean? What does it mean? So suppose uh, like Microsoft has a server, like, right? So it's not like a serverless pool. So it's so suppose Microsoft as a company has a server, has a SQL server, a server, right? So where someone can run a SQL pool, right? So suppose company a user A came to Microsoft and then they say that we want to run a SQL query on top of it. Company B came to Microsoft and then they say that I want to run a SQL query on top of it. Company C came to Microsoft and then they say that I want to run a SQL query on top of it. So then what they have done, they made a server and then they have given the server access to a server access to B, server access to C, server access to D. Okay. So all these guys can write, so come use this server to run a SQL query on their data, right? So they can do it, but at the same time, if this person says that my SQL query is not performing good, okay, so this particular when I'm running this, it's taking too much time. Okay, so when I'm running this, it's taking too much time. If they say that, then they will say that you, in that case, you create a dedicated SQL pool and then you run your SQL query on top of that dedicated pool. You don't run it on the serverless pool, you run it on the dedicated pool which is owned by you, so that you can like mention or increase the performance, decrease the performance. You can basically monitor it as per your need. And at the same time, if this person says that I want to store the data in the SQL pool, that is also not possible because that is not owned by you. If you want to store some sort of data, then you can store it over there, but you can use a computing power of the SQL pool which is also limited to run a SQL query on top of your data. That you can do. If you want to create an external table on this serverless pool, that also you can do. If you want to create a view on top of the SQL data, that also you can do, right? But you cannot physically store the data in the SQL pool because that is not owned by you. That is a serverless SQL pool. Okay. So this is a serverless pool in which you can run a SQL query on top of this data, but you cannot like store the data in this. You cannot like increase the performance of this. This is a SQL pool given by Microsoft to run a SQL query on top of this data. So if I click here, then if I go to property, now you are able to see, right? So this is the URL of this, and then we have used the same URL. Now suppose what I do here, I will do create database and then SQL pool. I create a SQL pool right over here and I run this query. Okay. Now we run this query. Now if here if I go to let me refresh this. Now if I click to the SQL database, right, I am able to this SQL pool, and then you are able to see external table, external resources, external view, schema, security. So these are all are external. Why? Because here you cannot store the data. It's like external. You can store the data somewhere else, and then you can basically run a SQL query on top of that data, right? So either you can store the data in the data lake, and then you can run a SQL query on top of a data using a SQL pool. That is possible. In which cases we use a SQL pool? So suppose you have the data in data lake, but you want to read those data as a point of like schema plus table, right? You want to read it like that. Then you can create an external table on top of a data, and then you can read it. Okay. So this is how you can use a serverless pool. Okay. Now, suppose if you say that I want to store the data in the SQL pool, or if you say that I want to increase the performance of the SQL pool, then in that case you need to create a SQL pool. Similar to in Data Factory, we create a SQL pool, right? So here also you create a SQL pool. So you can come here and then you can create a dedicated SQL pool, dedicated SQL pool, and you can mention the like the performance level of it. And it is a Synapse SQL pool, not a normal SQL pool. There are a difference between Synapse SQL pool and the normal SQL database as well. So this normal SQL pool doesn't support polybase. This support polybase, which I will tell you what is polybase. Okay. Uh, Simple security feature, no dedicated security center, offers more extensive security features such as network isolation, network center, advanced threat detection, scalability, optimized for data workload of 1 TB and above, can store and process data up to 240 TB of data. Better choice for smaller database. Basically, the Synapse SQL pool is an advanced version of a SQL database, right? And it has a like um, it is a better SQL database compared to normal your SQL database, and because it has an extra feature and also it bit more costly than a SQL database. Okay, so it's an advanced SQL database, right? So yeah, so here I am creating a SQL pool right now, which is a Synapse SQL pool. Okay. Now suppose similarly, like this dedicated pool is creating that I will show you. And then suppose if you want to run a Spark job, right? So you can create a Spark cluster as well. Suppose here I can go to Spark pool, and then I can create a Spark cluster as well here, similar to what we have created in Databricks, right? Just a cluster. So here I'm creating a cluster, Spark cluster, and I will select a small. I will select a very minimum node, and then I will create a cluster to run my Spark jobs. Okay, so both of them I'm creating right now, Spark SQL pool and then Spark pool. And also, when you're working in a free subscription, make sure that you stop your SQL pool and Apache Spark SQL pool both after creation, otherwise it will be chargeable to you, right? So just stop it after you use it. Okay. So it's both of them are creating right now. Okay. Spark pool is deployed. So here, suppose if I go here, and then if I go here, if I open the data, suppose if I want to read this, right? Now suppose I want to load this data in a data frame. So spark.read.load format CSV header equals to true and then display. Okay. So I want, so in Databricks we need to mount our data lake and all of that, because that was a different storage altogether. But it is present in Synapse, so you don't need to mount it. You can directly like read that data. And if you see, uh, we are using, like if I click over here, if I click on the properties, we are using this path, which is ABSS path. We are not using this path. This is path. This path we'll use in the SQL. This path, the second path, we'll use in the when we are using Spark, basically, right? So here now, suppose I also attach my cluster here, my language selected, and then run it. Yeah, so Spark cluster is ready. Now it will run. Yeah, so here I can see my data, right? So I read my data and then I can see my data over here by running a Spark job. So similarly, you can write the operation which you have done in Databricks over here as well. You can do, okay, by running a Spark job. Now we also created a SQL pool. Yeah, so this is a SQL pool which we created. It also got deployed. So now here in this SQL pool, so let me refresh it. Now you can see this is a SQL pool, uh, which yeah, so this is a SQL pool which is like the serverless SQL pool. This is a dedicated SQL pool. So here you can basically copy the data, create external table, right? So all of that you can do over here. This is a dedicated SQL pool for you. So you can ideally store the data here, and also you can increase the performance of that SQL pool, right? That also you can do. So this is about yeah. So what we have seen, how to make a pipeline, how to run a Spark job, the integration, the dedicated SQL pool and serverless pool, and then reports. So suppose here you can make like chart, you can export it. Yeah, so you can create charts here. That also is possible here. Now let me show you one more property which is also important in Synapse, which is like polybase. So now suppose if I want to create a pipeline and I want to copy data from data lake. My polybase is not coming. One second. Dedicated SQL pool. That's correct. Suppose I want to move the data using polybase. Yeah, let me try this once, then I will explain it. Because it has been a while I tried this, so let me try it once and then I will show you how it can be done. Please assign a storage blob container to SQL Server, data server. Yeah, so and then if I debug, hmm, so here I need to enable the staging. Let me enable the staging. So here uh, I will go here. See. Okay, so let me try this out, guys. It has been a while I tried this polybase, so I will try it out and then I will show you how this polybase works. But for now, um, like yeah, so you can uh, yeah, so this is what you can try out for now. Like try to make pipelines, run Spark jobs, create you can integrate existing data lake, create SQL pool, create dedicated pool, create serverless pool, and see how we can make reports, right? So try all of these things and be comfortable in Synapse environment. Try to do things what we have done in the past in the Synapse Analytics workspace. Okay, so get familiar with the Synapse Analytics workspace. That is the whole idea, and then we will continue. Okay. And also, I request that can we have a class tomorrow as well? Because we missed the class on Friday, so let's cover it up on like if you guys are okay tomorrow. Uh, can we have a class as well? Is it okay for you guys?
Yeah, it's okay for me.
So let's connect tomorrow as well. We'll have the class tomorrow as well, and then we will proceed from here. Okay, we'll learn further on snaps. Okay. Okay, guys. So that's all what I wanted to cover today. We'll meet tomorrow then, same time.
Tomorrow is it continuation of that delta load activity or?
Tomorrow I will cover on Synapse Analytics Workspace and then delta load activity I will cover a bit later once you all of you practice this.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So tomorrow Synapse Analytics we will cover and then we will learn about some data warehousing concepts which is also important. We'll learn about that tomorrow.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Okay, guys. So let's meet tomorrow. I will upload the recording and then let's meet tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Let's meet tomorrow. And then homework for the class assignment for the today's class is to practice, make pipelines on Spark job, integrate data lake, be comfortable with Synapse Analytics workspace, and try what I have done. Right. So try all of that.
Sure. Like, Vijay, one question. So, what kind of projects do we get in Synapse Analytics? Like, do we get any migration projects, like say from Data Factory to Synapse, or how does that work? What kind of projects we can expect?
So in Synapse Analytics workspace, you generally get the same like the project which you get in Data Factory, you get in Synapse Analytics, same project. It's not like Synapse Analytics has a different requirement. So it's a migration project. So some company has a Synapse Analytics workspace in their infrastructure. Some company has a Data Factory in the infrastructure, but none of the company will have both in their infrastructure. So as per the infrastructure, you get a project, and company decide what sort of infrastructure they want. And as I told you, right? So suppose if they have Data Factory plus few of the Spark related optimization, Spark related processing, then they will opt for Synapse Analytics Workspace, for example. The company are more inclined towards SQL warehousing concept or SQL thing, then they will consider Synapse Analytics Data Factory, sorry, Synapse Analytics, so that if they can make a pipeline, they have a better storage, which is Synapse Analytics storage, and then they want to do some sort of Spark jobs. So they will opt for Synapse Analytics, and then accordingly you will work on Synapse. But suppose a company has a Data Factory, but they are futuristic, so they probably work on more on a Spark optimization. So they want more of a Databricks, like more of a Spark capabilities. Then they will opt for Data Factory plus Databricks. So it depends on the architecture, but ideally whatever you do in Data Factory is possible in Synapse. So yeah, so it's the way of choice basically. So you can get data migration project, you can get ETL project, extract, transform and load. You can get ELT project as well, in which you extract, load and transform. So you will get all sort of project in Synapse as well.
Okay, okay, Abhishek. And like in Databricks, we have that Spark optimized clusters, right? So when we run Spark jobs in Synapse, like are they also optimized, or how does that work?
Spark is a framework which is an open source framework. Okay, so when you open Spark, what is Spark? Japanese Spark is a multi-language engine for executing data engineering, data science, machine learning on single node or multi-node cluster. And this particular Spark is open source. It's a framework and it's a open source, right? So now I can run Spark in my local machine as well. So what I can do, I can go to CMD. I can basically write pip install PySpark, and I can install PySpark in my own machine. That also I can do. But my own machine has a capability, right? So my own machine basically it has a like a particular vcore, a particular RAM. So it has own. So my machine cannot process. Suppose if you throw like big amount of data in my machine, it cannot process. So if I just install a small integration runtime, it fails because my machine is not powerful. So what they do, they provide a interface. So suppose when you go here and when you create a cluster, it's providing you a processing engine. So it's basically whenever you go here and then create a cluster here, you are mentioning what sort of node size you want to create and how many machines you want to create, right? So that you are mentioning here. So depending upon the size of the machine, they will charge you the money, and then in the backend they are creating a machine for you in which you can process your data. So in Databricks as well, when you create a cluster, they will create a machine for you so that you can create run your Spark job. In Synapse as well, you can do that, right? Both are using Spark. Okay, so that's not, from the Spark perspective, it's same. But Databricks offers you more advantages in terms of maturity level. Why maturity level? Because it offers you feature store to register your feature. Suppose if you're working on machine learning algorithm, you can create a feature and then you can store it. And then you have like Databricks workflow job, you have Delta Live table. It offers you multiple advantages when it comes to Spark, which you don't get in Synapse Analytics. So it, from that perspective, it is better, but from the Spark processing perspective, it's same. Okay, is
Okay,
that clear to
okay.
you, right? So from the feature
Yeah,
perspective, it's okay. Suppose like you use Netflix, sorry, you use Netflix and also you use Amazon Prime. So in Netflix, you have more of a advantage from the user interface perspective. Some people like Netflix, some people like Amazon Prime, but in both you can watch movies, right? I'm giving very lame example, but it's like you can just feel it in that way that it gives you more. So suppose Apple, you have a like different Samsung mobile as well, but both are mobile. But basically, both, in both mobile you can call, but Apple gives you multiple features in which Samsung doesn't have it, or Samsung gives you multiple features Apple doesn't have it, right? So from feature perspective, database is important. Much of a mature tool, it gives you multiple feature which you don't have in Synapse, but both runs on Apache Spark, which is open source. So anybody can run it. If you have a big machine, then you download Spark in your own machine and then you run your own machine as well. You don't need Databricks, neither you need Synapse Analytics, right?
yeah, Abhishek.
Okay, guys. So let's meet tomorrow. Anybody has any more question? Okay, guys. So see you then tomorrow. Please practice the previous classes. Okay, let's meet tomorrow then. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you. Bye.